Hello. So I'm going to carry on with the folio, and I'm working on this panel here, which is this panel. Now to you it may look like nothing is occurring, but I picked these up from the pound shop recently, and there's 10 packs of document wallets, and they're those kind of little things that open up, and you know, you can put your documents and whatever in there. But I thought it would make great little plastic pockets. So what I've done, because it was, you couldn't see anything really on camera, is I have cut 3 little plastic pockets to go on here, but I've left them slightly longer. The reason I've left them slightly longer is because it's very difficult to cut them exact. But I thought once I've kind of got them in place and stitched round here, it might be a little bit easier to just trim the excess off. So what I'm going to do is, I've got 3, and like I said, you might not be able to see them, but I'm lining the straight edge up on one side of my panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue a teeny bit of that down one edge. I'm not going to put too much glue on, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to push that out. It should dry clear, it's not a problem. And I'm going to do the second one. And again, it is very difficult to see. I'm not actually 100% sure how this is going to work out. And I do hope it works out okay, because otherwise this whole panel is going to be a disaster. And I'm going to do one more. Right, now I'm hoping that's going to grab enough. Got a little bit of a overlap here. Now I'm not going to put any glue on the bottom of the pocket. I'm just going to rely on stitching for that. And oh, that's a little bit out again. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of glue along this side and then push that out. And the same on all of these, just to try and get them. I mean, it's very difficult to cut plastic. It does slide about very, very slightly. So it's quite possible these are not completely square cut anyway. So doing it this way is kind of the best way I could really approach that. Right, so I've got a little bit of glue down each side, and like I said, you can probably just see the overhang of the plastic there. And I'm just going to leave that bit to dry for a little while before I stitch that, and we'll move on to this piece. This may well be a 3-part video, I'm not sure, but I do want to make sure what I'm going to do is I'm going to film everything and edit everything, so the videos will be up consecutive days. You won't have to wait. Now I want to work on this piece here. I think what I would like to do is make... Do I want to make some little flaps, or do I just want to make some pockets? I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I'm going to make a pocket. So I'm going to use this part here. Move that over there. Bring this piece in, and I need to cut this down. So I'm just going to cut that little, cut that crease from that crease. Get rid of that. And that. Okay, I'm going to cut a section of my paper out. And that would also make another pocket. Right, so I've got that. Now I'm going to put it on this side. I'm going to glue it in this corner because I'm going to make this into a hinge. Okay, so I'm going to just go in with my glue and glue this. Oh, I put it the wrong side, haven't I? I wanted that. Right. Yeah, I've made a bit of an error. What I'm going to do is, this was supposed to be at the bottom and it's now at the top. So I'm going to cut that spare piece off. And the first thing I'm going to need to do is just crease here. Okay, so I'm going to have to score here. And like I said, I've made a little bit of an error. And give that a good burnish. Right. So that is going to work quite nicely. And then on the back here, I'm going to put this here. Let's cover that. I've got this spare piece of paper, so I'm going to glue this onto here. Trim this down. So I haven't done one of these kind of longer projects for quite a while, so it's quite nice, but it's also quite daunting. That's a little bit too long. It doesn't fit perfectly, but that's okay. What I want to do is put a little notch in here. Put that in about there. Right, now I'm going to ink this one. This is where I'm going to have to start inking, because I'm starting to think about where I'm going to add stitching. So I'm going to just glue, I'm going to ink a little bit around here just to dirty that up a bit. The other side I can do later. But I'm going to put that in place, make sure that folds nicely. Now, I know I'm also going to have another little fold here. I want that here. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the side and the bottom. And I'm going to put that into place with a small gap where this crease is. I'm not going to glue that side. That's going to be that's going to be sewn. So I'm going to be sewing that closed. I'm going to attach this. While I've got this here, I'm just going to trim off that excess. This is going to go here, like that. But what I need to do is make sure I'm going to have the room. Yes, that should be fine. I've still got enough of a gap between that and the crease. And again, this is going to be sewn, so I have to think ahead. This is going to be a pocket. This is going to tuck out. I'm going to sew around here, which will also sew this to this. And then I'm going to sew around here. I'm going to add some glue. I think I'm ready for that. I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. And I'm kind of going to semi-close this as I glue it, because I want to make sure there's enough space. I don't mind if it's a little bit higher than the base, like that. So that is now glued there. Now I'm thinking this is a pocket. I'd kind of like something smaller to close here. So we've got something either side to fill this little piece. So here's some of my, oh, that's a better size actually. We've got a little bit here. That's kind of not a bad size at all. It will have to have a back and a front. So what I'm going to do, hopefully this is going to make sense. Just grab my scoreboard and I'm going to put a score in at about just over 1/2 inch. That should be plenty. Right. So that will form my little flap there. Then I'm going to decide how wide I want this flap to be, or this flappy pocket, and I'm going to put a line about there, still with the no measuring. So I'm just going to line this up on my scoreboard, and I'm going to do a little line there, like that, and then I'm going to fold that. And then with that in place, obviously this is my crease. So I know I need to cut just short of that. So if I put my flap in and draw a little line, I'm going to cut just to the left of that by about an eighth of an inch, maybe even a little bit less. So can you see I've got a little gap there, and that's going to form my pocket. But I want the back and the front of this covered. So let's go to some of our scraps, and that bit probably be about perfect. And I can come right up to this edge. So I'm going to fold that edge in. I'm going to glue this. Right, I'm going to turn that over and I'm going to glue down to the bottom here. And trim it. Okay, so this is going to be the front of my pocket and that's going to be the back of my pocket, and I am actually going to fold this now because I just don't have the time to let this dry before we carry on. Right, so that's that. That's going to go like that. So I want a little notch here. And I'll give this an ink because I might actually have to do some sewing on this piece before I move on. Okay, so that will be there. So this one is easy enough to sew. This one, I think, because I've got this little open, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew around this pocket first of all. Okay, what I would recommend is if you've used a glue stick, that you do let that dry before you actually sew, which I didn't. So that was a big mistake for me and my sewing machine. Now, I'm just going to go over that stitching where we get the white showing, to remove that, and now I'm going to glue this into place up here the same way I did the other pocket. So we have two little pockets, and then that will fold, that will fit in there. Okay, so that's our two pockets. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead, I could have put some paper here but I don't want to because I might do something else, plus there's going to be a tag of some sort in there. So I'm going to sew round here and I'm going to sew round here, and I'll be back. So that's all sewn. I did make a bit of an error and had to do 2 rows of stitches down this inside piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ink around the top here, around the edge, and again that's mostly because of that's where the stitching is. And I'm just going to ink around this main piece. So that is the little panel done for the side here. I'm quite happy with that. Should fit in there perfectly. So I'm going to go back to my little panel, which is going to go here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch all the way around, and then I'm going to come back and sew across the bottom of each of these clear pockets. Okay, that's all sewn, and I'm not going to lie to you, that actually made my eyes hurt. It's so difficult to try and see where the edge of clear plastic is, of course, because it's clear. But I think that's not bad. I think we're done there. Just going to trim off the edges of these. I did double stitch to make sure that won't come off. So we have, if I can, let me just cut this. So we have a little pocket here, a pocket here, and a pocket here. And there's nothing fancy like little notches because I know this is not going to be very good on that thinner plastic. There are 2 panels with the pockets and the flaps. What I might do before I come back is I might sew along my pocket and sew each of my panels is going to be somewhere, maybe that way or that way. I haven't decided yet which side this is going on. There's still a long way to go. But yeah, that's the 2 inserts. I'll be back once I've decided what's next.